What's up guys, this is Black Signal and welcome back to Orville Academy. In today's episode we'll be looking at part 2 of my in-depth Technomagic gear guide, so let's check it out. So now that we've gone over what Technomagic gear is and a series of skill lines that I think are worth hanging on to, there's still a handful of other handy things that I think you should know. First and foremost, it's important to understand that the drop rate is painfully low. However, you can offset this by trying to push for higher and higher tiers of Technomagic raids. The higher the difficulty, the higher the drop rate. Difficulty levels 4 and above also have a chance to drop reclaimed Technomagic gear. Difficulty levels 7 and above also have a chance to drop Technomagic upgrade stones. Technomagic upgrade stones can also be obtained by grinding gear of the matching class. For example, grinding a warrior piece of Technomagic gear will yield a warrior Technomagic upgrade stone. Grinding a piece of reclaimed Technomagic gear will yield 2 upgrade stones. Technomagic experiment reports are an extremely rare resource. While you can obtain some through Estelle's battle missions for Technomagic raids, or from random event missions, the only other constant source is the 10 Technomagic experiment reports that you can get every week from Estelle's weekly mission board. However, in practical terms, what this actually means is that you will only ever receive enough Technomagic experiment reports to either reclaim or craft one piece of gear every month. At first glance, a lot of Technomagic gear can feel underwhelming, as it isn't exactly intuitive where all the stats and power of a specific piece of gear is coming from. A lot of the power of Technomagic gear comes from stacking multiple skills as well as the 4-piece bonus. Additionally, you need to factor in the fact that support characters only need to use 2 skill lines to offer more power than a whole Dark Legion set used to offer your raid. And you still have 2 more lines and your set bonus that you can offer. If RNG is wearing you down, you can also craft a piece of Technomagic gear with the skill that you want. However, you'll find this sets you back 50,000 boss shards as well as 40 Technomagic experiment reports. And I would only really advise you doing this if you still haven't obtained a solid piece of earrings for your main DPS, or if you've got everything else except the final piece for your 4-piece bonus. That being said, crafting TM gear can also yield a reclaimed version, so yeah, but don't ever count on that. Now, despite the fact that the Technomagic gear system is actually pretty cool overall, there are some unfortunate realities surrounding it. The first of these is the terrible and painful drop rate. The degree of RNG associated with Technomagic gear is savage. Be prepared. You have to hope that it drops, you have to hope that it has good stat lines on it, and you have to hope that it has a good skill. On top of that, in a lot of situations, even with perfect stat lines, a piece that got a bad skill line will not be worth replacing perfectly rolled T8 gear with at all. However, you may also find yourself lucky enough to obtain a piece that has a skill line you were hunting for, but the main stat lines are trash. This will unfortunately result in you sidelining the piece until you're lucky enough to re-roll those stat lines to a point where the piece becomes more favorable than your current perfectly rolled T8 legendary gear. So now we've talked about what the Technomagic system is, how Technomagic gear works, a whole slew of Technomagic skills that you should be hunting for, and there is one last thing of major importance that everyone needs to consider, and that is, what should I choose to upgrade to reclaimed status? Now, one could be forgiven for wondering why this is so important. However, when you factor in the fact that reclaimed Technomagic gear only drops at raid difficulties 4 and above, and that it is even rarer of a drop than regular TM gear, upgrading your regular TM gear to reclaimed becomes your only option to shoot for higher stats. However, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, you will require Technomagic experiment reports in order to restore your gear, and Technomagic experiment reports are excessively rare. Therefore, it's paramount for you to come up with a priority system in order to help guide your use of your Technomagic experiment reports so that you can use them as efficiently as possible and yield the most results out of them. Lucky for you guys, I've got you covered and came up with a priority system. The absolute first thing you'll want to be looking at is a good pair of earrings for your main DPS. More damage means the raid bosses die faster. At priority 2, you have a toss-up between upgrading earrings for a second main DPS or for Fallen Fray. And which one you'll pick will heavily depend on which Technomagic raid you decided to push. If you've decided to focus on pushing Galgoria, the mechanics in that raid fight will demand that your second choice is another DPS hero's set of earrings. Likewise, if you've decided to push the Siegfried Technomagic raid, the mechanics in that encounter nullify the use of shields, making Fallen Fray earrings not optimal, so you'll probably want to focus on a secondary DPS character instead. If you've already restored a pair of earrings for your main DPS and a secondary DPS, then by default, the next best thing for you to do is to restore a pair of earrings for Fallen Fray. Once earrings for your main DPS sources are sorted out, and you've got a restored pair of earrings to scale Fallen Fray's shields, then the next best thing you're going to be looking at is survivability, and the best survivability bang for your buck is upgrading an orb. Whose orb entirely depends on who's dying the most. I suggest prioritizing orbs over main or secondary gear because HP will always be useful regardless of the content you're trying to push, whereas main and secondary gear slots will only yield benefits in content that matches their defense type. On top of that, the base stats for main and secondary gear slots don't scale the same for all classes, whereas the HP orbs do. Once all of the above is satisfied, and it's important for you to understand that it won't be for quite some time, then you can pretty much feel free to upgrade whatever you want. Alright everyone, so that wraps it up for my in-depth TM gear guide. I really enjoyed making this guide as there's a lot of intricacies surrounding this gear system, and I hope I was able to at least answer a few of the questions you might have had about it. Guys, if you found the content in this video helpful and informative, please consider subscribing to my channel and dropping a like on this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll try my best to read them and get back to you. This was Black Signal, and thank you for watching.